Hello, I'm Scott, the breathing guy. I'll train you to generate, locate, activate core key energy in physical activity. This video, driver swing mechanics with key energy, I'm going to answer an age-old process with the hands. This is lesson 1, stage 1, address and taking the club back. How should you take the club back? And there's 2 ways people do it on the most basic level. And as we're going to deal with shoulder rotation. Now, what is the best way to create shoulder rotation? And the 2 ways people do it, either they bring their hands forward and then they move the shoulder, the hip moves. It's one unit, and then the hip stops and the shoulder continues. But the other way I advocate is don't move the shoulders. You turn the shoulders first, then let the shoulder pull the hip around. One of the reasons why people do this, because their tension is in the shoulders. The shoulders are not soft. If they're not soft, they're linked to the hip. Range of motion, the separation of the shoulders and the hips is very much human. This is what we humans can do. And a lot of people get really stiff with tight shoulders and the hip and shoulder move there. That prevents crisscrossing. It's called a crisscross. So, the advantage of learning golf and practicing golf is to enhance the separation and use the separation between shoulder and hip as an expression in your sport, plus as an exercise development as well. That will go into lesson 3. We'll really focus on that. So let me prove what I say. You can test what I say. And the whole idea of the goal is to separate. How much separation can you create between the shoulder and hip? The first rule is you gotta have soft shoulders and you have to have high sensation in the hips. 2, the hip has to be tilted forward and your core breathing. Push your stomach out to inhale, squeeze up on the glutes. Now your shoulders can test. Prove my point is if you have an arch in your back, make this soft, try to turn your shoulder and keep your hip. That's as far as it goes and involved. So, and if you tighten it a little like this, raise your shoulder a little tight, it's 1 inch, you're not going to move it. Understanding the linking of the tension here and the effect down here is there, because in golf, you want the hips to turn the shoulder, rotate the shoulders, not the shoulders turning the hips involved. So, but if you loosen the shoulders, inhale, exhale. First, tip your hips, inhale, soften your shoulders, let your shoulders just drop. Feel your hands, wiggle your fingers when you're doing this. That helps you even drop farther. So if you wiggle your fingertips, that helps you sensitize your hands to your golf swing, believe it or not. So inhale, spread, open your hands, and then exhale as you're exhaling, wiggle the finger and soften the upper body on every exhale. Out your mouth for a bit. The fingers are slightly straight and you're doing this. That helps to facilitate it more. Now, with soft shoulders, see how you can slowly turn and the shoulders stay down, how far you can separate the shoulders and hips. And then turn the hips. Always create the shoulder rotation first, taking the club back, but it's the hips that starts the rotation of the shoulders coming down. That's the contrast between hard and soft. One pulls up, one pulls it down. The hips pull it down, the shoulders pull the hips up. Understanding that. So that is the first thing, really understand. You can test what I'm saying, and even here, when you're leaning forward, here's your golf swing. You're gonna, let's see, let me get my driver swing mechanics right. Like that. Okay, if you do this, if your shoulder tight, you can just tight like that. Look at my hips and turn right, and then I try to pull. Look at the separation of. But if I do this, soften that shoulder, soften that right shoulder. Make that right shoulder as soft as possible. Wiggle it, and then pull back with this finger only. All the other fingers are loose, and look how far you can make that rotation. Then the hip turns. When you want the hip turn, this knee comes across at 30-degree angle. And the heel comes up about an inch, half inch, something like that. Some people can go higher, depends on your balance and a lot of factors. But if you go up an inch or less, you have no problems. You go up higher, you have to have higher skills to deal with the effect, but you also amplify your rotational force. So there's a real skill aspect there. But for basic, this is all basic, understanding, separating, softening the shoulders is the key element, using the core breathing, amplifying the core area below the belly button, having the hips straight. Because if you have it arched in any way, there's no way you can separate the hips and shoulders. So separating the hips and shoulders is the key for rotational abilities in your golf swing. That's the bottom line. There's a lot of test what I say, feel the resistance. Don't go fast, go very slow, and see for yourself. Why do you want to take your soften shoulders, first tip hips, you want to say, just tip hips, inhale, and then as you just turn, you can see how far you can turn. But if the shoulders are tight, the hips are connected. That's the basic balance between the two.